think it's up.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, great. I see it. Okay, sorry. Restart. I have some background. I came in with questions, but maybe I'll let you guys kind of like start first. I only
Yeah.
say that for most people because I don't want them to be surprised when I just interrupt them. So,
No, all
uh,
good. We can definitely just do a quick intro, jump into questions you have, and then we can obviously go through the demo and show you the product as well. So I'm Sherry, and this is Jeff. We're both co-founders of Peak. We've actually been working together, funny enough, for like more than 3 years, even though Peak just launched this year. And it was actually born out of this pain point that both of us had, which is managing your own finances kind of sucks in this current world. I mean, you have Microsoft Excel, you have Google Sheets, you go in every month, maybe on like a Sunday morning, which is what I do, right? You could be doing better things, copy pasting, and then like just seeing like, okay, did I like not lose too much money this month, right? Is everything on track? But that really can be improved so much, especially with like the improvements in technology today. So that's why we decided to build Peak. We're basically this AI powered platform that helps you track and grow your net worth. So on one hand, we have these API integrations like a mint.com or like a Monarch Money, which is a bit more modern, that allows you to kind of automatically pull in your holdings from different places into one place. Really helpful for someone like me who has 18 accounts to track. And then the other part that we do is make workflows a lot more efficient. So that's where the AI component comes in. So how does AI help you decide, are there any risks in your portfolio that you may not be aware of if you're like a tech company worker with like 50% in Google because of RSUs, or like you're, sitting on like 40% in cash that is just losing money to inflation. So that's the mission behind why we built Peak. And we want this to be more than just like this finance product that tracks things. Like, we understand money is a very behavioral thing, right? A lot of times we know that we should do these things, but we still don't. And so we built the app with the kind of intention in mind to make it a more joyful and enjoyable, intuitive experience, and optimized for helping our specific ICPs be able to get to that decision, or at least financial clarity that they're looking for. And in terms of like where we're at, so we've been in the market for like 6 months now. So we launched our beta in April, and we've been able to get actually close to 90 people actually paying on the beta. A few hundred people came in as trial users, and it's been a pretty interesting journey so far, just in this like super like do things don't scale kind of stage
yeah,
where I have people on WhatsApp that I just chat with, like day to day around their experience with Peak, or what kind of questions they have that they're trying to answer within their personal finance life. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at today.
cool. On the really quick, just clarification stuff.
Yeah.
On the payment
Yeah.
piece, what are they paying for? Is it just kind of like a trial period, or is it like a freemium? Something
Yeah.
turns on after payment? How does it work? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a 14-day trial, just like any other subscription
Mm,
product. So you get to like muck around with the app, see if it works for you, connect some accounts. And then
mm.
after 14 days, there's two payment options. You either pay $10 a month, which is monthly subscription, and then you can also elect for $100 a year annual subscription.
Got it, got it. So what is, I think you guys might have this, and sorry if I didn't, I just glossed
No,
over it,
all
but
good. Yeah,
what of the people that have hit the trial end period, what's the
yeah,
conversion rate? Like
yeah.
how many ended up paying?
So for the beta period, up until like a couple weeks ago, that conversion was 25%.
Mm,
That number is starting to change a lot, to
yeah.
be honest, because we actually lifted the wait list. So now anybody
Mm,
can go in and look at the app and everything. But initially, it was 25% from
mhm.
the start trial to like paying either $10 a month or $100 a year.
Got it, got it. And then I know we'll run a demo, but maybe I'll just quickly kind of like ask,
Sure.
Yeah.
why are they, or what's the like magic secret that they ran into? Uh,
For wanting to pay for the
for
app.
wanting to pay for the app, or I mean a lot of times people just like
Yeah.
they put in a credit card before and then they forgot, right? And then they're kind of like
Yeah.
so I don't know if you've talked to a bunch of these users and you're like, why do you want to
Yeah.
keep using this?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I think for the first 2 months, it was people that just like believed in the team and delivering, because
Hmm.
what we kind of put together something that was somewhat workable. Um, but it didn't have any API integrations or any of that. It was like a single dashboard. It's like a fifth of what we have in the product today.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who converted stayed on because they can see how fast we were shipping and they can see the vision. So that's why they decided to pay to kind of continue. Basically, like we were prioritizing their feedback because they were basically voting with like the amount they were paying, right? But after month 3, as we transition to version 2, which we'll show you in demo, but we have API integrations, we have separate like portfolio, balance sheet tabs, as well as separate like performance tracking tabs. Then people started converting because of this one statement that I saw constantly when we did this word cloud exercise is like, wow, like I have an all-in-one view, right? And this it's kind of this magic where you connect a couple of accounts. Let's say you have Fidelity or you have like DBS in Singapore. You connect a couple of accounts and then like you see everything kind of neatly organized in one place with like visually pleasing charts, right? It's that kind of moment that people don't really experience using Excel or Google Sheets, right? It doesn't feel very rewarding, but that's like the moment that people have shared that gets them to like wanting to pay for Peak.
Yeah. And maybe kind of like one more question, then we can maybe jump to
absolutely.
demo is what are these people are these people like previous Mint users, or like have they tried a bunch of these things and they're kind of like trying you guys, or do you find that most people have like never done this before and it's kind of like never used software before, maybe kind of like looked at their bank account, did the Excel thing, and then are they kind of like new? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a mixed bag. And if we were like only launching this in the US, I think that the kind of user profile would probably fit more of the Mint native users, like the ones who've tried Rocket Money, Mint, etc. But 70% of our users are still in Singapore, and really there hasn't been anything in Singapore. Like there's like a very kind of like broken like government initiative called SG Findex that people have before, but it like refreshes only once a month. You only have like banks and insurance companies. You don't really have like brokerages or like some of the more modern things that people use to invest on it. So when we talk to people, like it's really us versus Google Sheets or us versus Excel. So it's quite a stepwise change, I would say, for a lot of people, going from like using Excel to using Peak. Now, obviously, there's a lot more user education involved, which I think is some of the challenges that we've kind of come across. So, we do have some US users and, they're like, oh, I totally get how to navigate Peak, right? Because they've seen this form factor before, they're used to it. We have to have a little bit more guidance for our Singapore-based users, even if they're not Singaporean, but they're less likely to have used Mint before. So we do a lot more signposting in the onboarding flow of how to use the app so that like it's not super overwhelming the first time they see it.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Do you want to do a quick play around with the product demo?
Yeah, sure. Jeff, do you want to do the demo?
I can share. I'm ready.
He has some cooler alpha features on it that we haven't enjoyed yet.
Okay, hold on. Let me just get this right. I think we're live. Okay, let me know when you guys can see my screen. Oh, it's gonna be too big. 1 second. I'm gonna open something else so that it's not too big. Just give me 1 sec.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Okay, good size. Yep. Okay, perfect. So this is big. Obviously, this is basically a demo account. As Sherry mentioned, when people sign up, they basically go through a 14-day free trial. One of the things that we noticed was that, hey, we have a cold start problem because you only get to really see the value of Peak once you have, loaded up and connected to a bunch of different accounts. So to solve that problem, we basically give you a demo data for everybody who signs up, which actually helps people understand Peak's value faster. So this is our dashboard. Right, so let's say you've connected to a bunch of different accounts. This is basically what you see. You see a nice chart of your net worth over time, broken down by what's investable, what's liquid, what's illiquid, etc. You can also click in to basically see balances on a specific date, if you like. We call that a throwback feature. And if you scroll down, you see a bunch of different insights. What have been your top total gains, right? What's been your all-star, all-time assets that you've investments you've made it really well. You also see a bunch of other insights like, hey, what has been some of the assets that have been concentrating in your portfolio, and how does it look like, and what can you do about it, right? The same thing in terms of your allocation. Have you been over allocating your equities, under allocating, etc.? And then we give you a bunch of different like suggestions that you can do. You can also continue to ask questions here, right? So this is where the AI feature comes about. This is completely an alpha feature, so I'll talk about that in about a minute. And we also have like some other features like ETF overlapping, as well as like news, where we pull in basically your top news about your top assets, so that you can basically make decisions around them, right? This is a balance sheet view. It's super straightforward. It's a table view of your assets and liabilities split across, categorized by asset class or your account. You can also, open it up and see, what's changing, what's hasn't really been synced. This is a demo account once again, so everything is fresh. But let's say you haven't really synchronized for like 2 months, we show you like a really nasty indicator to kind of penalize you that you haven't been doing your job, basically. The last thing I want to show you, well, second last thing I want to show you, basically the performance. Now, this is where a lot of people, I guess, cannot replicate that easily with Excel. Because there's a bunch of math that goes behind the scenes that tracks your your cash inflow and outflows on different accounts, and basically calculate what is the total capital invested, what is the total P&L across time, and then you can essentially like simply just drag and zoom into a specific period. All the numbers change depending on the period, and then you can see a bunch of different information around what's been the most performing, what's not been, and then you can dig in to get additional details if you like. I'm gonna also show you as the last part of the demo new features that we haven't quite released, so you're probably like the number 4 person outside of our team to be seeing this. So this is an AI feature. This is a new feature. Basically, we call it a peekaboo bar. So essentially, it's a command bar that kind of controls your peak account. So here, what you can do is, you can do very basic stuff, like you can add, your cash assets, or you can look for integrations. Let's say, for example, the largest bank in Singapore is called DBS. You can look for our integrations with DBS, right? And then from there, you can basically connect directly. But what's really cool is that we've now building this like AI layer on top of your personal finance data. So I'll run through a couple of I guess scenarios of what you can do with it. Earlier, basically, I was actually playing around with it. I was asking it to summarize my net worth, liquid net worth. It draws you a bunch of charts. We actually have like code execution capabilities that we run on a VM. So it runs Python code and executes it and gives you nice little charts, so that you can basically extend analysis on top of what you can already see on Peak. Let's say you want a specific way of visualization, you can use this, you can write a bunch of prompts and you get it, right? What's really interesting is that it also has access to the internet and also search engines. We're using Perplexity for full disclosure. We can basically pull in information from Perplexity, like, okay, what is the, I don't know, mortgage rate in the US as of a specific date. It pulls in the information, it runs calculation in Python, executes it, and gives you an analysis of the problem that you're trying to solve, financial problem or question that you're trying to solve, right? So this is really made for people who have a bunch of different questions. Honestly, like not everyone's an expert at these things, and a lot of the times when we talk to the users, they're like, "Yeah, I have questions I want to figure out. I know what questions I should be asking, but I really don't have any technical capability of actually executing these on myself." And especially once you have like 18 different accounts like Sherry does, it gets really complicated to have this full view and then run analysis on this like whole portfolio perspective, right? So these are some of the things that AI can do for us. This is what we have implemented. Another last cool thing that I want to show you, which might or might not be working because I literally tested that out before this demo, is essentially running simulations. Now, because of code execution capabilities and because we have your portfolio data historically, we can use that data, feed it into some modeling, and then actually build you a simulation app on the fly. So one of the capabilities that we've been testing out is essentially, what if we could build an app that builds financial apps for you with just a bunch of prompts, right? So very similar to what Replit has been doing in the coding space. Super similar to that. We're just basically building apps on the fly for your financial data. Now, this is probably not going to work because I just closed down the VM, but what it's going to do is basically similar to Claude. It'll just open up an app on the sidebar and actually give you like a simulation tool that you can interact with, which is not native to Peak's capabilities. But like I said, so long as you have the data, so long as you know what you're trying to do and you have a problem, well, the AI is basically going to figure out a bunch of different things, give you charts and give you apps that you can play around with. So yeah, that's a quick demo of Peak and how it looks like. Sherry, if you want to add on anything.
Yeah. So basically there's a couple things that we try to do to simplify the workflow for people when it comes to managing finances, right? So one of them is like a big behavioral blocker for most people, which is just like putting everything in one place to get a lay of the land. And so that's what the API integrations, how those come into play. And then gathering everything in one place allows you to do that quick check of like, hey, does everything look accurate and according to like what I expect, which is what you can see on the dashboard. What gets more interesting is the insights, which is what Jeff has shown here, which is how do we actually break down the questions that people have that in the past might be a lot more complicated, right? You have to like gather documents in different places, do internet searches in a couple different tabs. Maybe you have your Excel sheet and maybe a couple different scenarios you model out. We condense that so like mostly what the user has to do is start with the question, and then we guide them through the process of actually creating the workflow to answer that question. So that's the intent behind how we've actually created Peak.
Yeah. This is awesome. Thank you. Just randomly, how much of this is fake?
It's all real.
All real.
It's all real.
That's
This
cool.
is all live. Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
We just put an alpha stage because I'm literally coding this out like as we speak, so it's still in alpha. I know where the rough edges are, but it's working. It is actual real data.
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe this might be kind of like something you guys have thought about quite a bit already, but kind of like going deeper into what you were saying, Sherry. Why not just make this actually just like all AI? Like no dash. You know how like Perplexity has the whole like throw in some documents, do some integrations, and just like ask anything. Is that where you guys are headed, or is it like?
So I think that's a great point, and we've actually discussed this as well. Like, hey, do we want to kind of give people like a sandbox where it's like you kind of build up your own UI as you speak and just kind of create an experience that you can kind of decide what's persistent and what you need to use to solve a specific question in situation. But we found is that might be so for someone like maybe me and Jeff, like we're like, yeah, like we would love to do that because maybe we've seen so many these different UIs, we kind of understand how to do that. But I think a complete AI first, if I'm understanding you correctly, Brian, but like a complete AI first experience without like some kind of like mental model for people to start with, I think might be a little bit intimidating to start, right? Obviously the way people interact with UI, I think could fundamentally change in the next 10 years. And perhaps the Gen Alpha people that then grow up, 15 years later and start working jobs will have a very different expectation of what a peak experience would look like. But we're still like, I guess, majority of our users are millennials, right? They're kind of like, yeah, we grew up in an age where we're kind of used to like having some kind of like first stab at what a UI looks like to guide users into thinking, okay, this is what I should be looking at, but then introducing elements that are more dynamic on the fly, which is what we have with the AI. I think that's a good question, but I think we've taken the steps of just having almost a hybrid type of experience for now.
Yeah. Sorry, just one thing that I wanted to add on is on top of that though, what I would say is that we're also thinking about something like you mentioned for mobile though. Right now we don't have a mobile experience, we don't have a mobile app, but a complete like native chat interface could actually work really well for mobile, where you're not really trying to like go deeper. Like you're not trying to use it as an Excel sheet, but you're just trying to like query a couple of questions so that you can make decisions on the go. I think that's where actually like the chat interface really shines.
Got it. Cool. Not pushing you guys in one direction or another, just kind of like curious. Okay, maybe one more question because I want you guys to be able to ask questions too.
Sure.
I don't know, I feel like this is an obvious answer, but kind of like I'll just ask it. People have been working on PFMs like forever.
Yeah.
Right, like for like the past decade or so. It sounds like the thing that's interesting to me is like now we have AI, you can kind of do more analysis, all this kind of stuff. And so maybe that's already the answer, but like is that the question really was kind of like, why haven't PFMs worked before? Like, why haven't they been like super sticky? And what's different now? So maybe just like quickly take a shot at that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a few things, right? I think number one is that we do have to recognize that like general population investing is actually somewhat of a new behavior, right? I think there's a lot of people that I even talked to like during COVID who got into like investing. Sometimes they're like riskier shit, like sorry, my English, for riskier stuff like
okay, I'm also American, so
yeah. So like again, like the whole GameStop stuff, the crypto stuff brought a lot of people into investing, and so I feel like actually like like PFMs maybe didn't make as much sense at a larger scale when people were like, hey, I'm just trying to open an account to start doing some of this stuff, right? So I think people are now getting to the stage recently where they're like, okay, now I've been investing for a while. I've done so well in some areas. I've done really not well in other areas. Let me try to get a little bit smarter about it. So I think that's one aspect, which is just like generally people are more and more people are getting into investing and in the stage where they're now trying to be smarter about investing. So I think that's one. I think the second one is actually a more infrastructural gap, right? Building this product in not the US, I think a few years ago would have been a massive pain because of the integrations, right? We've been kind of lucky that we've been able to piggyback off of guys like Snaptrade or Plaid, Flanks, who've kind of built out integrations with thousands of brokerages and institutions. So we get a little bit of a head start instead of having to like build everything one by one by one. And I actually have been pretty excited about like Anthropic's like computer use API recently because I think that now there could be a possibility where like you don't even need an integration or API. Like you can just kind of like automate the process so you can pretty much pull data from any account into Peak, right? We're not building this, by the way. I'm just saying like what I think the technology can allow us to do in a way that would have been a barrier before, right? Like it's a pain to put everything in one place, and the tech's gotten better to remove that barrier. And I think the third one is just like, I think the positioning of some of the PFMs in the past, albeit I think very functional and straightforward, I think is missing maybe that like tap into the emotional or behavioral aspect of things, right? I draw a lot of parallels between personal finance management and like fitness, right? Like, maybe 30, 40 years ago, like getting fit, well, like the idea that like you should go to the gym and eat healthy was not necessarily like, a super widespread kind of like belief as it is today, right? And I think what programs and apps have been able to tap into is like almost like the gamification or like understanding like how to like tap into like people's inertia or tap into like or understand people's like maybe psychological barriers, like things like inertia, and then figure out ways to like kind of tap into like creating little dopamine hits right along the way to get behavioral change to happen. So I mean, again, a lot of the focus that we want to have with our app is to really look at it from a behavioral perspective, right? Like if we were to talk to somebody using Peak, like not just like what buttons are they clicking, but like what are they thinking when they're doing it? What's adding delight and what's creating friction and like, removing from that joy, right? And so I think that for those kind of three reasons, I think there's been maybe not like one single player that's been like, at least from a tracking perspective, like the dominant one. But we think that this is a pretty good time to take a step to market.
Yeah, got it. Okay, sorry. Actual last question.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, no, second to last question.
Okay.
I have so many. Most PFMs start off with just like expenses. And so are you guys thinking this is like primarily like an investments app, or are you going to try to do the other ones? Are you like how are you guys going to think about how do you think about that?
Yeah, so we decided to start with investments because of our ICP. What we noticed is that a lot of apps that start out with expenses tend to gravitate more towards people who are like in their maybe earlier part of their career where they're just starting to like, earn an income, get a paycheck, and be like, oh shit, I don't want to just blow it all on Vegas, right? Or like, buying a watch and maybe I should get my stuff together. So then like got like things like Mint or Copilot help you like make sure you're like building that nest egg that can grow. Our ICPs a little bit older, I would say. They're like, maybe like late 20s on the younger side and maybe early 40s on like the later side. So millennials, right? And so while expenses, I think, is a component of net worth because obviously the more you save, the more you add to your investments. Their concern is actually more holistic than a specific aspect of saving. So they want to know like, is my money growing, right? Like, am I strategically allocated the right way so that I can buy a house or start a family or live in a place that I want to live?
Yeah. Okay. I'm watching time because I'm doing these back to back, and I want to make sure you guys have questions. Funding. Where are you guys at with the funding? Did you raise some money before? What was that?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. So and then we actually added this, I think, to our application. So
Hmm.
we were previously Blue Jay as a company, and we raised
Oh,
some
that's right.
capital like 2022.
Hmm.
And we're at a point where we're gonna start a new company,
Hmm.
fresh, call it Peak. And there'll be some process of figuring out how to kind of go through that transition. So for Peak
Yeah.
itself, we haven't raised any money. So for all intents and purposes, it's pre-seed.
Yeah.
But very transparently, our company's been operating under the money that we have for Blue
Yeah.
Jay that we raised
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
few years ago.
How much did you raise and who did you raise it from mostly?
Yeah, so we raised a little over 3 million, bull market, so different
Yeah.
times. And we were raising from crypto investors because we were
Hmm.
operating in the Web3 space. So we had folks that were, I mean, actually mostly outside of Asia. They were like European-based crypto native funds.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's a very different, I would say, investor makeup
Yeah.
compared to what we probably have in the future.
And really quickly, is it a lot of different parties? I'm just trying to think about who you need to go convince and work
Yeah.
through. Is it like one big? No, so it's like a dozen, kind of like a.
There's a
Okay.
well, there's actually more than a dozen.
Well,
That's a
How
reality.
many like large-ish
oh,
material checks?
Largest probably less than 10.
yeah.
So we're looking
Okay.
at probably about six if I remember at the top of my head.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Anything I can answer for you guys? I apologize for the like quick drilling.
No, it's okay. I have one question, and maybe Jeff has one, but I looked at some of the previous cohorts for Iterative. I see that a lot of companies are in the B2B space, but we're right now, I would say more B2C. Maybe we'll do like B2B kind of expansion for monetization or distribution in the future. I'm wondering like is what the program is like for companies that like might again be more B2C, have more marketing versus sales focus, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll start with I, both Sika and I like those more. So it ends up being like most of the businesses, big business being built aren't B2C businesses. And so
Okay.
I think we'll have if the question is like, do we have the expertise and is it gonna be fun? It's gonna be really fun. And we actually built B2C businesses like both Sika and I did. And so that's the way to think about it. The program isn't structured. Go talk to like Agam about it, right? So it's like whatever you guys need, we'll figure out how to help. And we have all the mentorship, venture partners, etc., to kind of like go help there. So yeah,
Okay, cool. So not an issue.
not an
Okay.
issue. In fact,
Awesome.
kind of preferred.
All right.
Okay. I
Great.
don't have any questions. It's good for me.
Okay, awesome. Cool. I think this is exciting, interesting. If you guys don't mind, I'll give you like really quick feedback.
Yeah.
Which is I would love to use this tool, and it's great and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to build it when I was kind of like I still build shit, but like not professionally anymore. I think the biggest issue you guys will run into is the kind of like market size thing, right? So it's like not a lot of people have investments and everyone's kind of like using it in mostly Singapore. You're gonna have integrations there. And so not to say it's not gonna be a massive business when you kind of like figure it out, but like that's the challenge I think you'll likely run into. But not unsolvable. It's just one of the faster things. And that was the thing that I think most PFMs ran into in the States is they all, I mean, we were all kind of like semi-wealthy engineers, right? And then most people, when they started building this, was like, hey, it works in SF in New York. And for the
Yeah.
vast majority of the kind of like America, it doesn't work. And so,
Yeah.
not to say you guys will run the same thing, but like that's probably what I would think about as you guys build a company.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. I think it's like your early adopters will be a certain
Yeah,
characteristic, right? And like,
yeah,
it's kind of the case with us, right? Like the average user is like a 35-year-old Google engineer from like Bangalore living in
yeah,
Singapore. Like that's like the profile, but we do recognize that like we do want to like even not just from a money perspective, but even from like what kind of impact we want to leave for the world. Like we want this to be something that's general purpose, right? Like everybody
yeah.
should have the ability to feel financial clarity, right? But the way to get to people is not going to be maybe the same positioning, right? Which is like, hey, like, are you like someone who's really OCD about your finances and used to doing something like this?
Yeah.
It's a lot more emotional, right? It's a lot more like how can you make it relevant to somebody's life and make it feel like not pretentious. Like there's a
Yeah.
friendliness, like an accessibility that needs to be there. So that is the unlock that we will have to have, and
Yeah.
we hope that we can take a better stab at it than other players in the past.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't, I really should go, but you don't have to. There's like a real sector now of kind of like wealth tech. The only big difference is you actually are paying quite a bit for that type of software. And so there's kind of like a, do you get a small amount of people to pay you a lot, or do you get like a lot of people to pay you kind of like a little bit? So you'll have to like figure that out
Yeah,
at some
Yeah, for
point.
sure.
Okay, I need to
No
run. But great to
worries.
meet you guys.
of course.
And this is cool. Thanks for the demo.
For sure. All
Of
right.
course.
Take
All right,
care.
All right, take
take
care.
care,
Bye
guys.
bye.